2020 really is a year for the history books. Most of the world was locked down. Here in New Zealand, we were certainly locked down on and off for a good part of the year. 2020 was also the year that my life got tipped upside down when I was unexpectedly made redundant. In today's video, I'm going to talk about some of the lessons that I learned from being made redundant and how this shaped me into the person that I am today. So let's get into it. So I thought I'd start with a bit of a backstory. In 2020, I was working as a flight attendant for our national airline here in New Zealand.
Why do you want to be a stewardess?
Because of all the travel opportunities.
We fly from Laughlin to Fresno.
I had been in this job for 4.5 years, almost 5 years at this point. I had started as a junior flight attendant and then worked my way up through the ranks to become a trainer and checker on board the aircraft.
There's an oxygen mask up above you. On ahead and shout. Before helping the people who love you, put it on yourself.
Excuse me, miss.
Yes?
This is first class. I want my hand towels, I want my little booties, and I want my warm nuts.
Warm nuts. Here you go.
You call these warm nuts? I felt warmer nuts on a polar bear.
Stop it!
No. What did we learn here? Upon encountering a DP or a disgruntled passenger, take the following steps. A, listen. 2, acknowledge. And C, explain. And on a more personal note, I have actually felt a polar bear's nuts. Yeah, quite toasty warm.
I really loved what I did in this job. I got to meet new people every day. I got to travel. I got to stay in some really nice hotels. And in my actual role on board the aircraft, I got to help people grow and develop their careers as flight attendants. While there were some negatives to the role, such as the shift work, being away from my husband and my son, and also sometimes having to work public holidays or on special occasions, so having to miss some of those special events, I really did feel quite happy and satisfied in my career and my job. So 2020, COVID hit New Zealand shores. I think we had our first case here in February, and then by March we were locked down. What this meant was that the borders were shut. Basically, the planes weren't flying as much anymore. It was just essential travel that was happening at this time. My last flight that I remember doing at this time was in April, so it was just after we'd been locked down. We had one passenger that we flew the whole plane over to the Pacific Islands for. It was a doctor who we were taking over there. And then on the flight back, we had 6 passengers who were coming back to go to the hospital for medical treatment. It was really surreal doing these flights, going from a plane load of around 170 passengers or so down to a maximum of 6 passengers. That flight really kind of hit home how severe the situation actually was. It was towards the end of May, beginning of June, I think, that the airline started making a few announcements that they were going to have to start laying people off. They devised a fare system which enabled them to determine who was going to be laid off. Unfortunately, this meant that I fell into the category of being made redundant. I remember the phone call from my manager confirming that I was going to be made redundant, and I was in tears that whole call. I remember feeling that my whole life was being ripped out from underneath me. At this point in time, flying really was my passion, and I really loved what I did. I hadn't imagined leaving or doing anything else. To have something that you love and are passionate about taken away from you is a really gut-wrenching feeling that I wouldn't wish on anybody. I was now also losing my source of income, so you can imagine the stress that brought upon our little family. We had a mortgage and bills to pay. Things felt really crap. I remember feeling quite depressed over this time and also feeling quite lost because I didn't really know what my life was going to look like or what I was going to be doing moving forward. Things felt very out of my control. It was also really heart-wrenching because I was seeing so many of my beautiful friends in exactly the same position, losing their jobs. It was such a difficult period of time. The airline did offer free counselling sessions, so I did do a few of these to help me get through this period of time. Luckily, this period only lasted for a very short time, and I was one of the first flight attendants to get my job back. It really was like riding on a roller coaster over this time. The week that I was meant to finish up and be made redundant, I got a phone call, I think it was 2 days before I was meant to finish up, and they told me I could keep my job. I was so grateful to get my job back, but over this time I realized some things, which leads me to lesson number 1. I never wanted to rely on anyone for my income ever again. I wanted to be solely responsible for the income that I was going to receive. Basically, I wanted to move away from being an employee. This thinking led me to brainstorm and map out a new career path for myself. I returned to study while I was working part-time, and I managed to get myself qualified in financial advice. This then led me to quit the airline and become self-employed. I am now fully and 100% responsible for the income that I earn. If I work hard and I put in the effort, I make money. Lesson number 2 was that I needed to create multiple sources of income. I had relied solely on my job as a source of income basically since I entered the workforce at 15 years old. I had always had a job since then. If I was leaving a job, I would always have one lined up to go to straight away. There was basically never a point in time when I wasn't working. I didn't really have too much financial literacy at this time. It wasn't really something that I'd grown up with or had talked about much with my family. As far as I had seen from my parents, you had a job and that was how you made money. I've now educated myself so much more around this and am working on building up multiple sources of income. I'm proud to say that I have a growing share portfolio and I'm hoping to invest in property again one day very soon, so watch this space. Lesson number 3 was another one around our finances. We were completely unprepared for a redundancy. We did not have an emergency fund at all. We were on our debt-free journey at this time and we didn't have any savings at all. And this added a whole new layer of stress to our lives. If we had been debt-free and had a fully funded emergency fund, I feel like being made redundant wouldn't have been as stressful as it was. This experience really highlighted how important it was for us to be debt-free, but to also have an emergency fund in place as well. You really just don't know what unexpected curveballs life is going to throw your way. If you want the 101 on emergency funds, I'll link my video down below, which goes into explaining what an emergency fund is and why you should have one. Lesson number 4 was about our insurances. When I was made redundant, I called our insurance provider to let them know, thinking that our insurance cover would be able to kick in. They then proceeded to tell me that I did not have redundancy cover in place. This actually shocked me. We had personal insurance in place, but we didn't actually know what we were covered for. This prompted me to do a full review of our insurance cover and engage a lovely insurance advisor who was able to get our family the right level of cover with exactly what we needed to have in place. If you're unsure about what personal insurance you have in place or if you've got adequate cover, feel free to get in touch and I can put you in touch with my personal insurance advisor, who is amazing. He saved us a lot of money on our premiums and has ensured we have the right level of cover for our family. Lesson number 5 from this experience was around my mindset. At the time, I felt like everything was so unfair and completely out of my control. I realized that yes, while the situation was out of my control, my reaction to it was completely in my control. This was something that counseling helped me to realize. I could have sat and wallowed, but what good would this have actually done? It would only negatively impact myself and also the people around me. Instead, I was able to learn to flip this around and use it as a driving force to propel me to where I am today, which is self-employed and doing something that I love and am passionate about. I've learned that sometimes bad things happen to shake us up. We can either react to these negatively and feel self-pity, or we can choose to use them as a driving force to propel us to new levels. I've learned to perceive negative experiences as opportunities for growth and expansion. Your mind is a powerful tool that is completely within your control. Make sure that you use it wisely. Anyway, if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching and hearing my story about being made redundant and the lessons that it has taught me. If you've ever been made redundant, just know that I completely understand. It's an emotional roller coaster that can feel really scary and out of your control. Just remember, the best thing you can do is flip these negative experiences around and see them as an opportunity for growth and expansion. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.